One of the things that astrology invariably teaches us is that there's always a time and a season to do certain things. Often, society will condition us to always think about relationships or always think about money. Meanwhile, astrology and nature tells us when those topics are appropriate. So, this time around, with the upcoming full moon in Taurus, the subject matter is money and security. Now, it's a full moon, so we're not manifesting, but we kind of get a peek into what our financial story is looking like. What money moves have we made? Have they been fruitful? And most importantly, have they contributed to our stability? Apart from anything else, this full moon will be quite eye opening and perhaps in a way that you haven't anticipated. So, if you want to know more about the upcoming full moon in Taurus, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. So, this video is all about the upcoming full moon in Taurus happening on November 5th, 2025 at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, like I said in the intro, nature always gives us a time and a season to focus on certain things. And with Taurus being the sign of material wealth, possessions, assets, and things of that nature, naturally it follows that money and security are definitely the subject matters of this upcoming full moon. But more importantly than that, there is a very specific thing that I believe the universe wants us to focus on when it comes to this full moon. And like I said before, it's perhaps something that may surprise you or that you may not have anticipated. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. So, of course, we begin with the basics. Let's talk about Taurus energy and full moon energy. So, Taurus, being the first of the earth signs and the second of the zodiac signs, has a lot to do with materialism, finances, money, assets, comfort, luxury. But most importantly, I think Taurus energy signifies hard work and building foundations. So I want you to think back to earlier this year, perhaps April or May, I don't remember the exact date, when we had the new moon in Taurus. Now, the new moon in Taurus was shortly after the zodiacal new year, right? Again, since Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. And that was the new moon where we were laying foundations. Now, of course, you want to take a look at wherever Taurus is in your natal chart. But back then, perhaps you were planting seeds of something new, something tangible, something for which you were willing to put in hard work, something for which you were building a foundation. And now, 6 months later, at the full moon in Taurus, you can kind of see what foundation you've been building, or whether you've been building a foundation at all, right? Apart from luxury and comfort, which are definitely hallmark characteristics of Taurus energy, it's important to understand that Taurus energy understands, perhaps overstands, that luxury and comfort is something to work toward. It's valuable. Taurus is very much concerned with the concept of value. It's not about building just for the sake of building. It's building something that you deem valuable, building something that you deem worthy. Because apart from all of the classic Taurus stuff, Taurus also governs self-worth, value, self-esteem. So perhaps over the last 6 months, you've been building something that you deem worthy. You've been building something that you deem valuable. And now the full moon is going to show you the results of that. Full moons are about culmination. It is the part in the lunar cycle where your manifestations come to fruition. And again, to reiterate, Taurus energy, it's not just about your manifestation falling into your lap. This manifestation is a result of diligent work over the last 6 months and what that is yielding for you at this time. And apart from that, full moons are about observation. It's the part of the manifestation cycle where we literally enjoy the fruits of our labor. We observe. It's really a great test to understand yourself and to understand your efforts, because if you've planted seeds and you've tended to them, now you get to enjoy the fruit, or at least you're well on your way to enjoying the fruit. Whereas if you didn't plant anything, or if you planted something and didn't tend to it diligently, there's no fruit for you to enjoy at this time, right? But apart from that, full moons are also about illumination. So it may not be a time when you're actually crossing the finish line. It could be a time where the universe is showing you perhaps where you have more work to do, or perhaps where you need to tweak things in terms of value and self esteem. And with Taurus, it's like, where does your self esteem, where does your self worth, where does your value or your values need some work or need some tweaking, right? And all of that, particularly with this full moon, is geared toward security and stability. What have you done or what haven't you done to contribute to that? That is the question that this full moon in Taurus is going to ask of you. So now let's get a little more specific and talk about the numerology associated with this full moon. This full moon in Taurus is happening at 13 degrees of Taurus. So 13 reduces to the number 4. So this full moon in Taurus is sponsored by the number 4. So the number 4 is very much concerned with stability. It's concerned with dependability, security, right? I want you to think of like a building, right? Essentially, a building has 4 corners, and everything contained within that building is sort of fortified within those 4 corners. And so it's more so about the work put in to achieve that stability. The number 4 also has to do with strength and efficiency. It's about having a heads down approach to life and work. The energy signature of the number 4 can be considered kind of conservative, meaning that it focuses really on the tried and true rather than trying to recreate the wheel or do something innovative or novel even. It's very rational, it's very consistent, it's very disciplined, right? And often we don't like the word discipline because it kind of has a negative connotation, but regardless, I think you know where I'm going with this. The energy of this full moon, it's either going to show you the result of your discipline and hard work and how that affects your stability and security, or perhaps need to um where you need to be more disciplined, perhaps where you need to put in more work. You know, one of the things I love about full moons is that they're very eye-opening. Whether you realize it or not, the universe always has something to show you at this full moon, at full moons generally. And I believe that with this full moon in Taurus, it's perhaps going to show you perhaps how your values have shifted. Maybe back at the new moon in Taurus, you decided, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to build this foundation. And over the course of the 6 months, the last 6 months, I should say, maybe you've decided that what you started building is no longer valuable to you. Or maybe you saw something and it didn't mean much to you at the time, but now something has shifted in your world where now this thing is really valuable and now you want to build this thing. Now you want to work on this thing. But either way, hard work, discipline, um, dependability and consistency are the undercurrent energies running through this upcoming full moon in Taurus. Now, the astrology associated with the number 4. It's associated with Cancer, which is the 4th sign of the zodiac and the natural ruler of the 4th house. Now, Cancer, although not an earth sign, it is a water sign, but Cancer really also strives for security, like a secure environment. Whereas Taurus wants security in the physical sense, in the tangible sense, meaning like, okay, I've got enough money in my bank account for all of my bills to be on auto pay. Cancer also wants security, but emotional security. I want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. And with Cancer ruling the moon, and we're talking about a full moon here, that energy of wanting to feel secure and feel safe is definitely something that I feel like this full moon is going to evoke. Okay. There's also perhaps an undercurrent of home and family and domestic affairs that may present itself at this full moon as well. The tarot card associated with the number 4 is the Emperor, okay? And it's the Stoic symbol of responsibility, practicality, and fortitude. But most importantly, I always associate the Emperor with strategy. It's about being intentional and strategic. And so, whether you are sort of in celebratory mode at this full moon, where your strategy, your dependability, your focus, and your consistency have yielded great results for you, and you're finally stepping into a season of security, or whether this full moon is showing you where you need to tighten up and perhaps where you need to implement strategy. Either way, strategy and being intentional are definitely on par for the energy of this full moon in Taurus. Now, there's also this undercurrent of energy. And like I said before, it's something you may not anticipate, but that Taurus always wants to subtly remind us of. When it comes to building foundations, being consistent and disciplined, obviously that's very sort of masculine in nature, right? Masculine energy in nature. It's doing, it's exerting, it's rigid. But Taurus is a feminine sign. And Taurus always reminds us to not sidestep pleasure, to incorporate pleasure into everything that we do. And again, perhaps at this full moon, you are celebrating and feeling the pleasure of having completed something, worked towards something, and now you're enjoying the fruits of your labor. But perhaps for many of us, this full moon is a reminder to infuse pleasure into what we do, even if we are building something. Yes, there are times when, what we have to do feels like a chore, or, that we have to do work that isn't fun. But Taurus wants you to appreciate and look for even the littlest pleasure, even the smallest thing that brings you joy or that is fun. Infuse a little lighthearted energy into whatever you're doing. And maybe this full moon is going to show you what kind of lighthearted energy, what kind of pleasure you sort of need to incorporate going forward. I love the 13. I love the number 13. It's not only my number. I'm born on the 13th. And I always feel like that people that are born on the 13th are part of a special club, because every so often our birthdays fall on Friday the 13th, and people think that's such an unlucky number. But rather, the number 13 is very powerful. And the number 13 is the number of the divine feminine, which is partially why my business is called Divine Feminine Works. But that number of the divine feminine is about work, right? Because 13 reduces to 4. But infusing pleasure into it, how feminine energy approaches work is not through exertion. It's not through burnout. It's not through putting things out there. It's about creating the environment to receive. It's about magnetizing to you, not chasing. And perhaps that is the gentle reminder that this universe is going to provide us at this full moon in Taurus. To step into your divine feminine energy, and whatever you're building, it's not that you have to give manual labor to it all the time. You have to create the environment. You have to embody the thing that you want in order to see it come to fruition. And the universe just wants to remind you that in the gentlest of ways. So now that we talked about the numerology, let's talk about the astrology associated with this upcoming full moon in Taurus. So, concerning the astrology, there are three things that I want to pinpoint. Number one, it's that the sun and the moon are opposing each other. So, if the moon is full in Taurus, that means that the sun is currently in Scorpio, which makes sense because we're in Scorpio season. So, with the moon opposite the sun, there is this need to strike a balance. Now, the balance is between um, Taurus and Scorpio. Now, Taurus has a lot to do with our self worth, our self esteem, and Scorpio has a lot to do with the other side of that, the side that is hidden. What sort of hinders us from having healthy self esteem and healthy self worth? Taurus is surface, Scorpio is underneath the surface. So, in assessing and observing whatever the universe wants to show you at this full moon in Taurus, there's going to be some, I want to call it emotional excavation, right? Perhaps what you're building on the surface, aka Taurus, requires you to excavate your emotions, your wounds, and your traumas underneath the surface, aka Scorpio. So there's going to be this need to strike a balance between, sort of what I'm putting out there and what I'm building, and basically what's underneath the surface. If you're trying to build a new foundation, or if you've been building a new foundation, right, since the new moon in Taurus earlier this year, what was underneath the surface? What did you build that foundation on? With the sun opposite the moon, sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus, I think that the universe is going to shine a light on that and perhaps ask you to strike a balance between the two. The next thing that I want to talk about is that the moon is going to be trine the south node. So the moon in Taurus is going to be trine the south node in Virgo. And this is definitely about letting go. This is about releasing, particularly material things and bad habits surrounding security. So if security and stability are the names of are the name of the game, essentially, this full moon is going to show you what is hindering that, what's preventing you from having those things, and you're going to be asked to let them go. Especially habits, the little things that we do on a daily basis that aren't contributing to our security or our stability. So pay attention to whatever the universe is trying to show you. If it doesn't speak to security or stability, then be prepared to relinquish it. And then finally, Jupiter is going to be trine to Saturn on the day of this full moon in Taurus. And essentially what that means is that this is going to be a time of leveling up. And what I love about this, particularly with this full moon in Taurus, is that this leveling up could be in a very tangible way. So it could be more money. It could be, access to more money, a better job, a shift in your career for the better, right? Those are all things that could occur with this full moon. And apart from that, the universe wants to remind us that we need to allow our intuition to lead and to lead us to new opportunities for growth, expansion, and security. So also be prepared to perhaps step out of your comfort zone and step into something that will provide you more security, more opportunities for expansion and for growth. It's kind of a fortuitous transit happening at that time. So be open to expansion, be open to new things, be open to moving beyond your comfort zone. You'll definitely be rewarded for that. All right, so now that we've talked about the numerology and the astrology, let's get into the energy and talk about what we should do with all of this information. So like I said before, the full moon is not the time for manifestation, but rather a time for observation. So again, it's a time to really observe what you've been up to over the last 6 months. What foundations have you been building, particularly in the house that Taurus rules in your natal chart? So remember that the houses in our natal chart signify the different areas of life. So for instance, if you have Taurus as your 4th house, which is the house of home and family, have you been working on moving, relocating, building physical property, or starting something new with family? Maybe that was your intention, or those were the seeds that you planted at the new moon in Taurus earlier this year. How has that turned out for you? Have you moved? Have you relocated? Are you actively working with family or maybe even working from home right now? Allow the universe to give you a status report or maybe even a report card in terms of the work that you've put in, or perhaps maybe the work that you didn't put in. And then for those that are experiencing a culmination, celebrate. The one thing that we often overlook when talking about manifestation is we're so concerned about manifesting. We're always in this active mode, trying to get it. But you have to stop and smell the roses and appreciate what it is that you have, especially if your manifestation has come to fruition. And that's also the a very major part of the energy signature of Taurus is appreciation. It's stopping, it's smelling the roses and appreciating. So if you find that at this full moon in Taurus, your dreams have come true, you're experiencing something luxurious, you have something tangible that is a result of hard work executed over the last couple of months, stop, celebrate, pat yourself on the back, and enjoy all that you've worked so hard for. But either way, observe, allow the universe to show you what it needs to show you so that you can take it all in and then course correct going forward. All right, so just some final thoughts on this full moon in Taurus. Number one, this is a time of culmination. So perhaps you're experiencing the fruits of your labor. Number two, and I think this is going to be the overwhelming thing for most of us, it's going to show us how we need to infuse pleasure into our life and how we need to really settle into that divine feminine energy, which means that even if we're building something, even if we actively have to do work, we have to embody and create the environment that can magnetize that thing to us. And then number three, security and stability are the names of the game. And so everything should sort of be geared toward that, especially for wherever Taurus rules in your natal chart. Whatever house Taurus rules in your natal chart, this is where stability, or I should say themes of stability and security, are going to come up at this full moon in Taurus. Either way, it's going to be extremely eye-opening and enlightening. All right, my loves, thanks so much for tuning into this video. I wish you nothing but the absolute best for this full moon in Taurus and beyond, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.